It's tax day, April 15th. You have to have your taxes in. Accountants all over the country are scrambling to get these in, yet Janice sees a problem. Seriously, on tax day, UltraTax is down. Phyllis, not new to this issue, posts some nice pictures to look at while UltraTax is down, all on tax day. MewDog, understated, but you get his sentiment. He's not very happy UltraTax is down on tax day. Or maybe you're a lawyer who has a brief due. Or maybe you're a defendant that wants your lawyer prepared. Legal Twitter rips products apart when they're down, particularly Westlaw. Worst of all, they're very clever and sadistic. Lexis is one of our biggest competitors. He's vibing because Westlaw is down. Thomson Reuters had a problem, and we needed to solve it. Many times, our customers were our telemetry. That's a really bad place to be for a tech company. And for products that are as important as our products, we can't have that. So we embarked on a multi-year service improvement project where we did many things to prevent our customers from alerting us to problems. We enabled Datadog. We picked Datadog as our standard observability tool for our main products. We created a whole service management organization that was tasked with coming up with best practices and tooling to make sure that we could eliminate really, really ugly situations like this. We also started the Global Command Center. Global Command Center is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year center where butts are in seat and they can respond quickly to problems when they happen, so we don't have to get these type of tweets. My name is Bert Stewart. I'm the director of Global Command Center. My partner, Ramdev, is not here today. He's a victim of the airline cancellations that we are all trying to dodge these days. He's a distinguished engineer. He leads the teams that build our AI platform, and that is what we use to build our AI-Augmented control plane. I'm going to do my best to cover his slides, but we'll see how this goes. Before I get into the control plane, I want to give you a base context of what we're working with when we're building on a building the control plane. And the base of it is TR's AI platform. So the vision for the AI platform is to make using LLMs as safe and easy as possible for any user within Thomson Reuters. For many years, Thomson Reuters has been an AI company, but that was focused more on our products, nothing to do with our inner services or even the enterprise activities that happen day to day, creating spreadsheets, analyzing large bits of data. We didn't have that capability. So the AI platform was built in the last couple of years to allow us to do that. So at its core, there's a few personas that the team looks at when they're rolling out features for the AI platform. We've got AI explorers. Those are people who probably wouldn't know how to build a PC, wouldn't know how to install their software, but they are really good at doing a function in an enterprise. We wanted to make sure that they could use the AI tools and get really good outcomes out of them without investing a ton of time and effort learning about the tools. Then we have AI creators, or SMEs, people who have not quite development experience, but they know a lot about very technical processes, or perhaps they're even a legal scholar who wants to see if the LLMs can do something for their daily work. So reviewing new regulations, spitting out a concise summary of them, and experimenting. And then we have developers. So these are people who will work with the AI platform via APIs. They'll create more advanced workflows, and they need to build a platform so that all the people who could use it have a different way to interact with it based on their experience and their abilities. So with the AI platform, one of the things that really helps is the AI platform team handles all of the building and vetting of the models. They make sure that when a new model comes up, that it's safe for us to use, making sure that our data is secure, and we're constantly rolling out new models, new versions of models, so we stay very close to the industry. They take care of all the building of the model, training of it. They also handle the evaluation of the model to make sure it's not toxic, to make sure that it's efficient and that it has high quality responses. And then they deploy and monitor it. So from a service team like myself in the Global Command Center, it's great that I don't have to worry about a lot of the deployment of the models. I just have to worry about giving the model the data and also giving the model the right prompts to get the results I want. One of the cool features that we have is a chain builder. Someone with no experience whatsoever with technology can go in and graphically create a very good chain that allows them to do many different things. It's really the sky's the limit. As creative as you can be, you can stack workflows and create really good solutions. We also have a prompt builder and AI evaluations. We'll talk a little bit later about testing and evaluating the AI models because that really is the critical piece, because every time you change one variable within the chain, it's a whole new chain. So being able to very efficiently test these and roll them out and react to different variables is very important. Okay, right. So hopefully I gave you good context of what the AI platform is. You can interact with it via chat, you can interact via API, or you can create something with another GUI where you just click and drag. Now, where's the Global Command Center come in play? Well, I talked to you about our service journey. We rolled out the Global Command Center, and it was very successful. So successful that our MTTA, MTTM, and MTTRs were much better than any of the applications that did not use the Global Command Center. So looking at mean time to restore being 18% over the rest of the population, executives were asking, how do we roll this out? How do we get everyone to use it? So that brings up a new problem. At the time, I only had 100 engineers supporting 300 applications. And now I'm being asked to onboard twice as many applications as we currently had. If you can imagine, that's going to be really hard. I'm going to need a lot of staff. Also, I was given very clear instructions that do not mess up the metrics. This is a good story to tell. You can improve or stay steady, but you cannot show a drop in metrics. So MTTMs, all those need to stay the same or get better. And my boss at the time, he's no longer with Thomson Reuters, gave me a very clear message. Don't screw this up. So I was feeling very stressed. But no sweat here. I'm just going to hire a bunch of people and do the same thing with more applications. However, just like in Jaws, they didn't get a bigger boat. Because the reality of the situation is headcount doesn't grow on trees. There's no way I'm going to get 100 more engineers to do twice the work. We need to find ways to optimize what we're currently doing in the applications we're supporting, find better ways of onboarding new applications. Otherwise, we are not going to be successful. I'll get some headcount, but I'm going to have to fight for it. Also, when you're onboarding a new application and you're leveraging AI, you need a lot of data. You need to understand what the application's made up of. What are its failure points? How do you recover from those failure points? All those types of things that you need to teach the engineers who are supporting the application to do. You need to do the same thing with AI. So no matter what you do, there's a huge amount of effort that's going to have to go in to get that information. So what do we do? We need to innovate. And that's where the AI-Augmented control plane comes in. With the AI-Augmented control plane, we can do a lot more with less. We can do it faster, we can do it safe, and we can do it faster. I think I already said that. It's fast. So I'm not going to take you through the whole architecture of the control plane and every feature of it, but the key pieces that I would point out here is it's not meant to replace any of our current tools. It's meant to augment those tools. We use Datadog for observability, ServiceNow for our ITSM ticketing. In the graphic you'll see here, it's hosted in AWS. It could just as easily be hosted in Azure or any place else. Because the key pieces really are not the functions within the account, it's really the integrations we're building. And you can integrate something like this in Azure, Google Cloud, it doesn't really matter. You'll see that the TR AI platform, that's very oversimplified graphic here because it shows one AI platform. In reality, there's dozens of AI agents and dozens of AI RAG chains that we use and will use. It also allows us to very efficiently control access to prod applications, something that really saves a lot of time on engineers when they're addressing an issue. Because with the Global Command Center, 100 people, 300 applications, they could have between 4 and 9 applications they're looking at a single time. So going in and out of those accounts to do stuff is not going to scale, so this allows us to do that. Let's see here. All right. So I don't really want to talk too much more about the control plane. If you see me walking around, I'd love to talk about it because I talk about it every day. But here I thought the best use of time is really to share some of the insights we had while building a control plane. I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun. It works. We're rolling it out. But I think the insights will be more helpful for you. Number one is not all LLMs are equal. They each have their own strengths. And as they get rolled out, you need to really have a process where you're evaluating them, that you're testing them, seeing which one's best for your use case. Maybe it's Claude for writing code. Maybe it's ChatGPT for summarizing work notes. You need to really iterate through that so that you can pick the best one. And then choose wisely, because once you pick it and you're using it, it's almost a long-term commitment, because anytime you change something with the chain, you're going to have to test it and test them against each other. So you want to make sure you choose wisely, because it's a lot easier going from just messing around with some configurations with a current model over switching out a whole model. But you should also not just stick with your favorite. A lot of times something will come out and it'll be completely new. You should really make sure that you have a process in place where you're able to evaluate all the new stuff that's coming out, because that might be the edge that you need to really improve your service or really improve the product you're building. And did I say test? You want to make sure you test it, because there's nothing more embarrassing than having your model spit out nonsensical answers or completely inaccurate answers, especially when you're dealing with a control plane. What if my model said, hey, I suggest you take the US East 1 region out of your application? Maybe I do that because I'm trusting my chain, and by doing that, I bring down the application because it doesn't have another region. So you have to make sure that it's very, very accurate, and that you only know that when you're testing it. So you can't just let a model out there in the wild. It can degrade. It can start giving weird answers. So you always have to constantly be testing it. And I'm really excited for Datadog's feature where you can evaluate the AI models. I think that's a really cool feature. Because doing it yourself, you have to build a lot of infrastructure. So when I talk about the models, I'm almost exclusively talking about a RAG chain. It's a Retrieval Augmented Generation. So that's basically where you're putting guardrails around it. I'm sure if you hadn't heard it before this week, you know about it now, so I won't go too into detail. But the way we build the RAG chains is we start with a model that our AI platform team has already trained and made sure they're ensuring that there's no bias, that the data is protected. Did I say something wrong? So that the data is protected, and also that you want to make sure there's clear and concise prompts. You may think that writing this really huge prompt is going to cover all your bases. I personally found giving a very short, concise prompt is better. And that's where the double tap comes in. I think in the industry it's called like a two-shot. Well, I call it a double tap. I'm a former Marine, so I like that term. So the double tap is where you say, this is my query, and this is the result I'm expecting. This would be a perfect result. And you give a couple of those scenarios in the prompt, and it brings up the quality of the responses pretty high. You're very likely to get a good response. Also, I didn't put it in the notes here, but when you're creating the RAG chain, you're basically putting data in a database, an S3 bucket in our case. It's kind of a good idea to create a prime directive document. I like to seed all my chains with a prime directive document that says, hey, you're a chain, this is very important, this is what I want you to do. So with that, in addition to the prime directive document, the model has a lot more understanding and context of what it should do. And that only takes a few seconds to create something like that, and you can even use an LLM to create that prime directive. Also, create many models. We're not going to have one model do everything. You really need to think about your models as that expert team member that you go to for specific things. If you're building your RAG chains like that, you'll be able to put better controls, better guardrails in place, and you'll get much more consistent answers. It's like having a good prompt, but this is really, have it do one thing really, really well. And I'd like to introduce you to a couple or several of our models that I've built. We've got the dev expert, he's on your team, he knows everything, he knows Python, he knows React, he knows AWS. You can go to him and ask questions, but he's not grumpy. You're not going to annoy this guy with silly questions. So it's lowering the bar for a new engineer to start developing and not making mistakes, kicking out higher code quality, and you get none of the sarcasm that you would get with someone who's very experienced and doesn't want to talk to new college grads. So we created a dev expert. We also have the agile expert. The agile expert will take your ideas or work items that you're told to do and will create an Azure DevOps story for you, whether it's an epic, a feature, or a task. It'll do that for you because as developers, we don't like doing that. We just like saying, hey, I'll just put it in when I do this other task item. So we're lowering the bar to make sure that we have high quality stories put in place. It tells us what we should test. It's just amazing. I love it. We've got the process expert. So when you're working on a feature, you need to know where everything is, integrations, and you need to document it. I don't know about you guys, but I think developers are really crappy at documenting. Well, this guy right here will document for you. And you're not going to have to hear about his cat. You're not going to have to hear about the kids' scouting trip. Just give him the information and he'll document it for you. And then my favorite one is my Datadog. My Datadog, this guy's great. So a lot of times when we onboard applications to the Global Command Center, they aren't using Datadog to its utmost ability. They're not using monitoring as code so they can make those changes. So we created this Datadog agent who seeded with a lot of really good examples from our Datadog monitoring as code repo, and then a prime directive document so you can go in and say, hey, I want to monitor ASGs and AWS. How do I do that? Create the templates for me, and it'll get you like 80% there. So that helps lower the bar to roll out things like monitoring as code. Now, getting people to adopt it and that's a different problem, but we can do that pretty easily here. And then this guy on the fringe, that's the router. I haven't used a router yet in prod, but what we did with this is we built a RAG chain that had very minimal data in it. It basically has a JSON file with a bunch of objects, and each of those objects has meta for an endpoint that we use, and a very good description of what that endpoint is used for. And then it has the specific URI or URL that you need to go to reach that resource. And then through a series of lambdas, we take in an event. The event comes in, goes into Event Bridge, then Kinesis, then ultimately into Lambda, and it spits out the endpoint that we go to. So what do we do with that now? Well, you can think through it. One object in one file allows us to route. So now we can point a Lambda at the router LLM and eliminate thousands upon thousands of lines of code that would be deterministic within a Lambda, or having dozens of Lambdas. So in the future, we'll take in an event, it'll tell us where to go with it, and then that will get executed. Hopefully I drew a good vision for you there. It just allows us to really move fast and not have to worry about updating the code for our event messaging layer. And then when you're building these chains, if you build it personally, a little bit of that is going to come in, it's going to eke its way into the chain. It's going to have a little bit of your personality, and I really hope you notice that I was the inspiration for all of our models. I think my favorite one was the grumpy dev. It looks more like me than the rest of them, but yeah. So I guess what I'm saying there is you're going to have bias, and that goes back into making sure that you're testing, making sure that other people understand what you're trying to do with the model, so as they're using it, they can evaluate if what you built is good for their use. So wrapping all up, I hope I gave you some insights into our journey, our use of RAG chains. If you're a decision maker or have an ear of a decision maker, I could not have done this with a control plane without having an AI platform. I think TR invested very wisely in building the AI platform, whether it's for developers or internal people who might not know much about technology. It's really allowed us to move quickly and learn and adopt a lot of AI into our daily work lives. So go back, tell them you need to have something like this, or you need to build something like this, because I'll tell you, when you democratize access to these models, it's safer, and you're going to get a productivity boost. Also, what I'd point out, I can't overemphasize that make many models. Don't have one model do everything, because the more specific you make it, the better the results are going to be. And it does not take a lot of time when you have an AI platform to roll out a new model. We can roll a new RAG chain in like 10 minutes if the deployment gods are on our side. And that's about it. So we have some time left for questions. I'm willing to field some questions.
Hi, just for the AI uninitiated, is a RAG chain the same as an agent, or is there a difference?
Good question, and I'm not going to give you the by-the-book answer because I don't know if I could. But what I'll tell you is a RAG chain is not an agent. The RAG chain is simply think of it as a source or service that you can use you give it input, you get an output. Where you have agents do things. They can interact back with you. The RAG chains I'm building are not agents, but when you stack a bunch of them together and give them instructions, like maybe in a Lambda or something, they become agentic, right? But they're not by themselves agents.
You placed a pretty heavy emphasis on testing and making sure that each of these agents are tested around the model that they're set up to use. Can you go into more detail around what that kind of testing looks like? Does it involve eval suites or something more specific?
Yeah, so it can span the gamut. So you can do automated testing with creating campaign on our AI platform. We have that capability. Or it could be human in the loop testing, or it could be a mixture of it. And what that entails is you know what your model, with your RAG chain, you know what you want it to do. So you need to figure out, as a user, what types of questions are going to be raised, how are they going to use it, and you need to be you have to be quite wide with what you're looking for, and then you need to capture the results from those queries, and then you need to evaluate, how accurate is this, how concise, how clear, and then if something falls below the standard, you fail it, right? So you need to come up with lots of use cases. And you probably could create a RAG chain to create use cases too, if you're lazy like me.
That was going to be my next question. Is there sort of a framework, an open source framework for testing these kind of things, or do you just kind of come up with that yourself, write it in-house, and then use that against all of your...
We have a framework as part of the AI platform. It's called AI evaluations. But I think Datadog announced a feature for LLM observability that looks pretty sweet. We'll just have to see if it's cheaper than what we're doing. But yeah, there's definitely, if we were all to sit in 4 different rooms and think through what we would do, we'd probably come up with a very similar, how we need to test it.
One last question. Around developing your own sort of agentic platform for your in-house agents, how do you evaluate between developing it all in-house and hosting it in your own cloud, and basically standing up the components for that yourselves versus using a tool that's gaining popularity like N8N or things like that? I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
I'm not familiar with it, but I think it all comes down to can we build it better, cheaper, and are we willing to support it, or do we want to buy something that works really well and deal with the trade-offs? Mainly, we're waiting for a feature backlog or a roadmap item, right? So you have less control. But those are all, I think that's the age-old dilemma in IT. Like, do we build it or do we buy it?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi. Just going back to your double tap suggestion, is that a way of putting guardrails on it? Or, because I sometimes find if you prompt too much, it then doesn't really go wide enough.
Yeah. So it's guardrail in so much that it's telling the model, you'd be a good boy or good girl if you do this, right? I'm giving this, if I gave you this input, this is what I would expect. So it's doing some pre-processing, I guess, for it.
Are you doing that more when you know the outcome versus when you're researching and trying to hypothesize more?
That's a good question. I did it more at the latter. So like after I built it, I wasn't very happy. And it specifically is helpful with the router because previously it would give me a bunch of text, and I don't want text. I wanted a JSON object returned. So it's like, okay, you're telling me all the right stuff, but not the right way.
Got it.
This is how you can tell me.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.